Hello writer, and welcome back to my life. It's Writer Wednesday, the day where I talk about the art and the business of writing and tell you how I do what I do as an indie author. Today I want to talk about what I call unpacking a scene, or turning it from an outline into a first draft. You've already heard about my outline process. If not, I'll stick a card right up there so you know that when I'm done with my outline, I have really detailed notes for what happens in every scene of my story. And the next part of the process is taking those outline scenes and turning them into, an actual book. And the way I do that is, wait for it, I use my imagination. No way, come back please, I promise, I'm not trying to be unhelpful. This is one of those things where I don't have a more helpful, simple answer, but I can try to break down what using my imagination means when I say it. So I have a very vivid and very visual imagination. When I'm creating a scene, a story, a conversation, I can see it playing out in my head like a movie. This is either a product of or the cause of my working in the film industry for a number of years. I don't just see words on the page, I see what's going on in my mind. So when I'm reading my own outline back, I see what's going on in the scene, and then I try to write that as best I can. Having a background in high school theater helps with this, because there's a huge amount of blocking, or physically arranging the things and people in a scene on stage so the audience can see them and they create an emotional impact. You should have a firm image in mind of where everything is in a scene while you're writing it. If you're able to, close your eyes and put yourself in the space. Look around and see where everything is. This is helpful even if you don't include a detailed description of everything in the room. With your blocking in mind, you can let the reader know about the location of important things so that when action happens, they aren't confused about where everything is. Even a simple action like stepping to a window can help with this. You can mention earlier in the scene that a character is standing near a bed and then later say they stepped from the bed towards the window. This relates to the earlier description and not only gives the reader a clear picture, it can actually give them a tiny dopamine hit as they realize, ah yes, I knew they were there by the bed and the author confirmed that for me. Another thing you've got to make sure is in your scene is actually something I try to include in my outline, and that's the required beats every scene should have. These are the 5 commandments of story as discussed in great detail in the book The Story Grid by Sean Coyne, which you should absolutely buy and read. In summary, they are the inciting incident, progressive complication, crisis, climax, and resolution. I couldn't even begin to get into detail on this in this video, so just go read the story grid, and as you're translating your outline into a first draft, make sure every scene has the required 5 beats. The third vital element in any scene is emotional development. Now this can sort of be lumped into the 5 required beats, but it's important enough to merit its own mention. Every scene should start with your characters in one emotional place and end with them in another. It can be good to bad, bad to good, good to better, or bad to worse, but there's gotta be a change. Obviously, along the lines of showing and not telling, that emotional change should be demonstrated by something more compelling than your character saying, I am sad, or I am angry, but let's assume you already knew that. Next thing that can help you turn an outline into a living, breathing scene are the 5 senses. What do your characters see, hear, feel, smell, and taste, provided they have access to all of those senses? Reminder, not everybody does. Now, as with anything else, you can overload the reader with information. They don't need a checklist of all 5 senses with every new development. But if you, and not to go too Darth Vader on you, but if you search your feelings, you'll almost certainly be able to recall certain sensations that produce a strong emotional reaction in you. And if it's something fairly universal, like the smell of a campfire, or the taste of blood, or the terrified tightening of your shoulders, a good description can help produce that feeling in your reader. Figure out what emotion you want to elicit, figure out what in the scene could produce the senses that are associated with that emotion, and write it in. The last thing I always try to include in each scene is tension. Again, this is something that should be going into your outline, but you want to make sure it's in your first draft as well. What tension is and how to achieve it could be the subject of an entire Writer Wednesday video, and if you want to see such a video and you're a patron, please let me know in the comments. But provided you got a fair handle on that, make sure to always be ratcheting up the tension as much as you can. So these are the 5 elements I use when I'm turning an outline into the first draft of a scene and how I unpack it. Tension, senses, emotion, required beats, and blocking. You can remember these with the acronym STIRB if you want, even though that's not actually a word. Or, and I apologize for this, but you can also remember them with the much more pronounceable and memorable acronym BREAST. But if anyone asks, I didn't tell you that. And it's important to remember that these are the most important elements I keep in mind for the specific step of going from an outline to a first draft. After that, there is more that I add in and layer in with editing passes. This is going from your general description to the beginnings of an actual finished scene. That's all I've got for you today, writer. You may have noticed this video didn't have an ad in front of it. That's because some of my incredible viewers support my channel on Patreon. $5 patrons even get to request topics for future Writer Wednesday videos and see them 2 weeks ahead of everyone else. If you want to be one of the awesome and incredibly attractive individuals who make my videos ad-free, check out my Patreon. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next Wednesday. Bye!